Okay, our next unit is Unit 4, which is based on the concept of key. But first we need to define the concept of key. Well, key is another word for the pitch level that a particular tone unit may have. This pitch level is usually marked on the first or only prominent syllable. That prominent syllable is called the onset syllable. There are, of course, other syllables, but this is the name that is given to the first prominent syllable, or if there is no other prominent syllable, to the only syllable that is prominent in the tone unit. The concept of key is very important because it marks the changes in the relationship, the semantic relationship between tone units. And what type of relationship can exist between tone units? One of equivalence or one of contrast. And this happens during the context of interaction. These key choices, as we said, occur at the semantic domain, that is, at the semantic level. This means that sometimes, because there is a textual metafunction of language, different meanings are contrasted between tone units. Why does it happen? Well, first of all, because these links between two tone units, provide a certain degree of cohesion. A semantic cohesion, if you want, a grammatical, but also coherence between the structures. And in general, they contribute to the overall meaning of the utterance. Some of the meanings that are usually established between two units are meanings of synonymity, antonymity, inclusion, cause, derivation, exclusion, addition, contrast, or consequence. Well, the relationship, or this meaning relationship between two tone units are sometimes literal. It means that we're able to hear, to see those differences, and they're very crystal clear. There are such differences like black or white type of differences, when we talk about contrast, or the meaning of inclusion, like let's say animal and dog, a type of relationship. But sometimes the relationship, the meaning relationships between two tone units are not so clear. And so we have to go through an inferential process. It means that a cognitive process of trying to deduce the ideas that the speaker wants to express between two tone units. And sometimes this, but what should be clear is that this choice of a semantic meaning is usually applied to the second tone unit, but in relation to the previous tone unit. So it's more of a relationship, a sequential type of relationship there. So whenever we want to analyze key, we have to pay attention to the second tone unit, because it's the one where we're also going to mark key as well. What we should also pay attention to is the concept of mid-key. That is one particular type of pitch level. Whenever we speak, this is the most prototypical, the most common type of a pitch level that we use, that we speak. In general, when we speak, most of our utterances, most of our tone units are going to be produced in this particular pitch level. And the semantic meaning that is generally associated with this pitch level choice is that of addition. So it means that if we add a particular pitch level, which is a mid-key, to one tone unit and then to the next and to the next, it means that we're just adding more information and more information and more information. So the situation has not changed, but we keep speaking about the same and adding more information. This middle average pitch range then could be the same or have the same key as the previous tone unit. But when the speakers start using a different pitch level in the second tone unit, that is not the typical mid-key, and they probably drop their pitch level choice, then we know that another meaning, okay, is conveyed, is expressed by the speaker. When there is a particular drop in the pitch level, that is, if the speaker uses a low key on the second tone unit, then we can say that there is an equivalence relationship between the two tone units. That is, the second tone unit will be expressing something that is identical or similar to the information that we have in the first tone unit. So as we said, this happens between two consecutive tone units. So for example, if there are three tone units, one after the other, the relationship can only occur between the first and the second, or the second and the third, but not between the first and the third, the first and the fourth, and so on then. And because they are so close to each other, that is, they're in a sort of sequential, okay, position, we can recover this meaning of equivalence very easily. As we said there, we can identify low key because there is a lower pitch level or pitch range there on the second tone unit. And we mark this in the conversation script by using an arrow going down before the onset syllable. Remember that we have established that the low-key use or low-key choice by the speaker is that of equivalence. Okay, so what is the meaning of equivalence? That two tone units may contain information that is very identical, very similar, okay, to each other. But there are five uses in which these equivalence concept is going to branch out. Okay, the five common uses of equivalence. First, as we said, there is the existential equivalence of words or ideas. Let's say the typical example will be, okay, one where one particular tone unit expresses the same as the second tone unit, as the following tone unit. Okay, like for example, if we talk about someone who, the name of someone and then the role that that person has, then those ideas or words are equivalent. So here we have an example that we can hear now.
It's really hard because I'm like, I can't see what I'm doing.
So
it's really hard because I'm like, I can't see what I'm doing.
So there is a drop in the pitch level, okay, by the speaker, and the idea is that these two tone units contain information that are equivalent. And what is equivalent here? The fact that it is hard for the person to do whatever he's doing, okay, is related to the fact that he can't see what he's doing. So these two ideas are said to be equivalent in nature. And this, you can see this, okay, drop in the pitch level. Sometimes when we have, okay, the visual representation in Pratt, like we have here, as here you can see that there is a drop in the pitch level for the second tone unit, and that gives you the idea that this first tone unit, okay, is equivalent to the second. But where do we mark the case of key? Remember, not on the first tone unit, but on the second. So the idea of a key is sort of sequential, and so we express the meanings of equivalence.
It's really hard because I'm like,
key or contrast later on, or
I can't see what I'm doing.
Key on the
it's really hard because I'm like,
not on the first.
I can't see what I'm doing.
The second use of low key that is related to the general meaning of equivalence is a sort of derivation or causality type, okay, of a relationship with low key between two tone units. Remember that the overall meaning is that of equivalence. So this is called the causal or because relationship. So the first tone unit, okay, it has a particular reason on the second tone unit. That means that the second tone unit is the cause of whatever is happening in the first tone unit. And so here we have an example that we're going to listen to first.
No, don't worry, I'll phone him. No, don't worry, I'll phone him.
Okay, so you're able to notice, okay, the drop in the pitch level, and we can also visually identify the difference, as you can see here on this Pratt graph, in which, okay, there is a drop in the pitch level for the second tone unit. So how do we know whether this is a causal or bicausal relationship? One mnemonic rule is to use or to introduce the connector because, so we can say, don't worry, because I'll phone him, okay, and that will tell us, okay, for certain that this has been a case of causal or because relationship. The following meaning of low key is that a result or therefore relationship X therefore Z or so Z. The idea here is a sort of inverse relationship between the two tone units. The ones that we saw in B was that of cause, and it was established, remember, on the second tone unit. So here on the second tone unit, what we have is the consequence of an action that is expressed in the first tone unit. So we're going to listen to the example.
Okay, so this is the tight angle. This should be delicious. Okay, so this is the tight angle. This should be delicious.
Okay, so if we see this, okay, in the Pratt graph below, the graph I plot, we can see that the second tone unit has been produced, okay, in average, in a sort of inferior pitch level than the first tone unit. Another mnemonic rule that we can use, especially for this particular meaning, is that of introduce and remember the connector between the two tone units. So, okay, this is the tight angle, therefore this should be delicious. Okay, so we can see the consequence relationship between the two tone units. Something that should be said is that both the causal relationship or the result relationship are expressed, okay, by using prosodic means, not by using connectors. What do we mean by that? That the listener infers, deduces the semantic meanings that of causality and result without having the explicit connector. This means that if we do have the because connector in B and the result connector, which is so or as a consequence or therefore in C, then we don't have any, we don't need to have the drop in the pitch level. Okay, so be careful about that. If the connector is there, the second tone unit is going to be produced, okay, with a mid key. But if the connector is not there and the speaker still wants to express a result or causality, he or she is going to produce a drop in the pitch level, and we have to connect them, okay, mentally by adding a connector that is not explicit. Okay, the next use of low key is called the restrictive function, in which we have a sort of a hyponymic type of relationship. If you remember your lectures on Introduction to Linguistics, and especially Semantics, in which the second tone unit is a member, okay, of the general word, the general idea in the first tone unit. So this is called the restrictive function, as it says there. So how is that expressed? Well, we will have a general idea in the first tone unit that is going to be exemplified there, made more specific or restricted in the second tone unit. So we're going to listen to the example now.
Especially when it's used to destroy stuff, like fruit. Especially when it's used to destroy stuff, like fruit.
Okay, so as you can see, also in the Pratt plot there, You can also see that the last tone unit, in this case the second tone unit, I'm sorry, is also going to be expressed in a lower pitch level than the first one. So what is the relationship? In the first tone unit we talk about stuff, and in the second, stuff is a general word and is exemplified with the word fruit. So one member of the general word stuff is fruit. And finally, the last use of low key that is established between two tone units, especially marked on the second tone unit, is that of the aside comment. Here we're going to have all the parenthetical structures that you have seen in syntax, then the comment clauses, and so on. So we're going to see one example here. Let's listen to this.
For a complete beginner, which I am. For a complete beginner, which I am.
So you can see here in the Pratt graph that the second tone unit is produced in a lower pitch level. Let's listen to another example.
There's another one from the 16th of July to the 4th of August. Ah, but that's for older children, 16 to 18.
Yeah, let's have a look. Ah, so they do 2 languages, not just English. That's good, isn't it?
There's another one from the 16th of July to the 4th of August. Ah, but that's for older children, 16 to 18.
Yeah, let's have a look. Ah, so they do 2 languages, not just English. That's good, isn't it?
Okay, so one very important characteristic about aside comments that you may remember is that the tone unit, the ideas, the information that is expressed in the tone unit with the drop in the pitch level with a low key is not addressed to the other person. It's not meant for the other person to understand it as an important piece of information. It is as if the speaker is talking to himself, remember. As we said, the speakers may also choose to increase the pitch level. Okay, instead of dropping it like we have seen for cases of low key, the idea is that the speakers may diverge from the typical mid key, which is to add information one after the other, and when they start, increasing their pitch level, there is a meaning that is being expressed. And what is the typical meaning? The general meaning is that of contrast. That means that the information in the second tone unit represents a sort of or is in a sort of antonymic relationship with the information in the first tone unit. So it's contrary to what the hearer expects then. And again, this contrast may be by something that has been said, or is something that is also implied or implicit in the context. How do we do that? How do we express high key? Again, by raising the pitch of the voice on the onset syllable, which is another word for the first prominent syllable. Okay, again, like with equivalence for low key, contrast, it may be branched out, may derive into 4 different types of contrast. Okay, so we're going to see the first case, which is called the existential contrast of words or ideas, in which X is not Z in a sort of black or white type of relationship, okay, or antonymic relationship, then like antonyms. So we have one example here. Let's listen to that.
Oh. In the States, it's very different. Oh. In the States, it's very different.
Well, in this case, and we have to be very careful here, because we talked about, 2 tone units that come in sequence. But this sequence may be not just intra-speaker, meaning that it's the same speaker who is producing the 2 different meanings, the 2 semantic meanings, but in this particular case with contrast, the second speaker produces his first tone unit in relation to the last tone unit of the previous speaker. So it sounds a little complicated, but we're going to see the example here. Well, in this case, as you can see in the example, The speaker was talking about differences between the United States and Great Britain, but they were discussing first, okay, cultural differences in Great Britain, and now it's time to discuss differences in another country. That's why Terry here produces a race, okay, in the pitch level. We can see this, okay, visually, as you see the O produced by the other speaker, and then a very high, okay, pitch level that Terry produces, okay, because she's going to contrast, establish a contrast between what they have been discussing before, what happens in Great Britain, to what happens in the States. The second use of high key or contrast is also dialogic, okay, in this particular case, because the information that is presented in the tone unit is in relation to something that the previous speaker has said. Why? Because you cannot disagree with yourself. Actually, you disagree with something that the other person has said, okay? So we have one example here that we're going to pay attention to, and we have two speakers. Notice that the key is going to be produced by the second speaker, not by the first.
Go and live in caves or something?
No, that's not what I'm trying to say. What I meant was...
Go and live in caves or something?
No, that's not what I'm trying to say. What I meant was...
Okay, as you can see here, the second tone unit, okay, where the female speaker is going to produce a disagreement, okay, is represented, okay, on the Pratt graph there with a raise in the pitch level there, with a higher pitch level than that produced even by the speaker. The thing is that here the requirement that the two tone units should be consecutive is a little ignored, because what is important here is the meaning of disagreement, and sometimes the speaker may disagree right at the beginning of his speech, of his turn, but he could also produce it later on. Okay, the next case is a sort of different type of a dialogic relationship. In B, we had disagreement. That is, the semantic material by the second speaker is totally different from the information that was produced by the first speaker. And so here, well, you may be doubting why agreement, because agreement sort of relates to the idea of equivalence. But the key word here is the word strong agreement, okay? Strong agreement. And why is there a notion of contrast in agreement? Well, we're going to see in the example, the speaker says,
"Are you watching the movies I recommended?"
Yes, love them. Irene Dunn is fantastic.
"Are you watching the movies I recommended?"
Yes, love them. Irene Dunn is fantastic.
So the idea with strong agreement and where the contrast lies is the fact that the person says the same type of information that the other person has expressed. So you can say, well, that's equivalence. But the difference lies in the way, not in the what, but in the how that information is expressed. Okay, so she could have just answered, yes, I have watched the movies. But she says, no, she loved watching the movies because it was fantastic and so on. So strong agreement lies in saying something in a completely different manner, although you are saying the same or similar to what the other person said, but you're saying it in a different manner, in a different way. So you can see here in the Pratt graph there, and there is an explanation. So the speaker produces the elicitation for information, and Iris responds that, like, she agrees that she has seen that, but expresses it in a different way. She has not only seen them, but she has loved watching the movies. The next case is called the particularizing function. And here we also have the idea of inclusion that we had in equivalence. Remember that in equivalence we have one particular function that is called the restrictive use, in which we have a general word and then we have an example there of that general word. The idea with particularizing function is still the idea of membership, but when the second term unit is produced, the element that is mentioned there is an element that is selected and highlighted and elevated, okay, not as equivalent to the general word, but trying to make it distinctive there from all the other possibilities. Okay, so let's listen to this.
Like what?
Well, take food shopping, for example.
Like what?
Well, take food shopping, for example.
Okay, so the idea is here that they were discussing ecological issues, and in this particular case, George thought that in this case Rachel was being too general. So Rachel then later on, okay, chooses one particular topic that she highlights, okay? And how does she do that? Remember, by raising the pitch level in her tone unit.